Biodiversity is a combination of biology and diversity. It means the variety of living organisms on Earth include the unicellular bacteria up to multicellular eukaryotes such as animals, plants, and fungi. The biodiversity can be divided into three types. First, ecosystem diversity, which means the variety of habitats, ecosystem, and communities can be found on the Earth. Second, biodiversity can be studied based on the species, which is species diversity, variety of species in a specific area or an ecosystem. The last is genetic diversity. That means if we focus on a species, they can show different genes and combinations of genes. Let's study with the examples. Okay, we continue with the ecosystem diversity. There are so many types of habitats can be found on the Earth. The terrestrial yang daratan punya, such as forests, savannas. The aquatic one include the wetlands, rivers, or even the ocean. If we focus on the wetlands, which is one of the ecosystem can be studied, it shows different kinds of organisms can be inhabit there, such as fish, crabs, snails, and frogs. If we focus on the population of frogs, let's say we have 5 frogs can be studied, and we move on to the genetic investigation, we notice that each frog shows different genes or different combination of genes. And this can help us to study, they show different phenotypes as well. Taxonomy is actually a study on how to name, describe, and classify organisms based on their unique characteristics. And taxonomy, the origin word is taxon, or plural taxa, which means the group of organisms at a particular level based on a specific classification system. So according to taxonomy hierarchical classification, we have 8 taxa here, which start from the biggest one or the broadest one, which is domain, to the most specific one, which is species. The order of the taxon or taxa is specific, so students must have your own way or own method to remember the order. Carl Linnaeus suggests a specific method to name each organism with a scientific name, according to the biological classification. The method is called as binomial nomenclature. Bi means two, nomial, the name or the terms of the organisms, nomenclature, the naming system. For instance, human, the scientific name is Homo sapiens, which is actually the first term, which means the first term Homo is actually the name of genus. And the second term, sapiens, is actually specific epithet or is the name of the species. Let's study the scientific names of rabbits, which are Ornithologus cuniculus. So the first term is the name of genus, followed by the second term, which is the name of species. So the first letter of the genus name should be in capital letter. The rest, include the name of the species, should be in lowercase letters. The scientific name should be typed in italic or should be underlined when we write it. And the line should not be continuous. So here is the example of how rabbits is given a scientific name, which is Ornithologus cuniculus, based on the hierarchical classification from the domain until the species. So this is the way of writing the species name, even though we know that the second term Cuniculus refer to the species, but we should write the genus in this level as well. Living things can be classified according to a few classification systems, such as 5-kingdom system and 3-domain system. The level domain actually is the most inclusive, or we say the broadest taxonomic category, because a single domain can contain one or more kingdoms, such as domain bacteria, domain archaea, and domain eukarya. The 5-kingdom system was proposed by Robert Harding Whittaker in 1969. He studied the living organism based on a few criteria and classified them. Firstly, he focused on the level of cell organization. Are the living things prokaryotes or eukaryotes? If they are prokaryotes or they consist of the prokaryotic cells, they will be grouped under kingdom Monera. However, for the living organisms consist of the eukaryotic cells, it will move on to the second criteria, which is the types of organisms. Are the organisms consist of only one cell or more than one cells? If they consist of only a single cell, they are under kingdom Protista. And the multicellular eukaryotes can be classified according to the third criteria, which is the modes of nutrition. Can they produce their own food, which is autotroph, or they have to obtain the food from different sources, which is heterotroph. If they're able to produce their own food through photosynthesis, it will be grouped under kingdom Plantae. And the heterotroph can be studied more according to their modes of nutrition, which are absorptive mode or ingestive mode. If the heterotroph have to obtain the food through absorption, which will be grouped under kingdom fungi. However, if the heterotroph have to obtain the food through ingestive method, it will be grouped under animalia. The 3-domain system was proposed by Carl Woese in 1977, who classified living organisms based on the difference in ribosomal RNA genes, or rRNA genes, which code for RNA components of the organelle's ribosomes. And based on this difference in the ribosomes, we can divide the living things into prokaryotes and eukaryotes. All eukaryotes will be grouped under domain eukarya, and domain eukarya consists of more than one kingdoms. If the eukaryotes consist of unicellular organisms, all of them will be grouped under kingdom Protista, and the multicellular eukaryotes will be grouped under the kingdom Plantae, fungi, and animalia based on the other unique characteristics. However, the prokaryotes can be studied based on the cell wall components. If the cell wall contains peptidoglycans, it will be grouped under domain bacteria. Notice the writing of the name bacteria. The first letter is in capital because this is the name of domain. If the prokaryotes have the cell wall without peptidoglycan, it will be grouped under domain archaea. But based on the unique characteristic of these prokaryotes under both domain bacteria and domain archaea, we notice that it can be found in the same kingdom, which is the kingdom Monera. This is why some of the scientists disagree with the kingdom Monera as a valid taxon in the biological classification, because kingdom is a lower level than the domain. It shouldn't be grouped for both domains.